Today we're going to talk about batteries and how important they are for your kayak, whether you need it for your trolling motor, your electronics, your camera to power it all day, lights that you might have on board. You're going to need good quality batteries. Now, since 2020, I've been using Amped Outdoors. They're local, up in Wisconsin. We're in Illinois, so pretty much right up the road from us. And I purchased my initial set of batteries from them. In fact, I have it right here. We have the 100 amp hour battery, which has been powering my autopilot motor since I got it in 2020. And then we also have the 32 amp hour NMC 14.8 lithium ion battery, which powers my electronics. That's my live scope, the black box. There's a NEMA network with a ReadyCast on there as well, and then a 10-inch Garmin unit. So it's quite a bit of heavy-duty electronics with a lot of draw. 32 amp hour battery's been doing really good for me, and I got this last season. So I've purchased those myself. And in 2023, Amped Outdoors has been very generous to support the channel and my fishing endeavors by supplying new batteries for 2023. This is of course going to go inside of my new Old Town Autopilot, which I recently received. What I want to talk about in this video is understanding what batteries you should be choosing for kind of like the application you need it for. Now, if you're running a 7-inch fish finder screen, you're not having any kind of advanced live scoping, live imaging stuff. With a 7-inch screen, in most cases, you can get away with a 12 amp hour battery. The draws on those 7 inches is not that much, and it'll take care of you for a full day. When you start stepping into like the 9s and the 10s or bigger, you're gonna want a lot more juice, which is what I recommend going to 32 or a 48 amp hour if you are running a bigger screen and if you are running a live imaging, or if you have some kind of a NEMA network because you have other kind of pucks attached to your rig. You're gonna want that extra juice. The live imaging sucks a lot of power, and you need a good battery to supply that power. And in particular, we also have a brand new 32 amp hour, 14.8 volt lithium ion NMC. What's great about these 32 amp hours from Amped Outdoors, they're one of the few people that I am aware of that currently makes these higher voltage batteries. And the reason for this is that these higher voltage batteries helps to push that signal through with the higher voltage. That signal you get in your live imaging to your fish finder, it's going to help with the clarity, and as well as it's going to allow you to run your battery all the way down to get all the juice out of it. Because of that higher voltage, it's going to take longer for it to creep on down to the, I think it starts to cut off around 12 volts. I could be wrong, 13 volts. Before you start having issues with the sonar reading because it's losing that kind of voltage, even though you'll still have juice on the battery. That's the key thing about this 32 amp hour high voltage, is that it runs up the high voltage so that you're going to run out of juice more times than not before the voltage all the way hits that cutoff point on your electronics. So highly recommend, if you're going to go with a bigger screen, live scope imaging of any type, go with the 32 amp hour. I think there's a 48 amp hour battery. It could be wrong, but the great thing about the 32 amp hour, and this is more specific for those of you that are in like an autopilot like myself, is this will actually fit down the center, the front hatch. All you need to do, and I think I might have covered it in a previous video on my channel, all you gotta do is take a little Dremel and just Dremel just a little bit of the cover, just to make little wedges so that the two prongs here slide through it, and it doesn't take much. It's very easy to do. Once you cut out those little grooves for that the prongs to slide through, the rest of the battery actually fits straight down in there, and you can put it in the bottom of in the hole, and then when you're done for the day, you pull it straight back up and out. So with this 32 amp hour, it kind of fulfills my needs of not having to find a whole new spot for the battery on the deck anywhere or by my seat. I can put it in the hole so it's secure in there and I don't have to worry about it. So highly recommend 32 amp hour for those multiple reasons. Now let's talk about the big battery here. If you can see it here, it says 160 amp hours. Why am I getting an upgraded battery in terms of capacity? One thing I noticed last year specifically was that the fish were out deep, of course, but we had a lot more days of stronger winds and really more significantly stronger currents. And because we are trolling on Lake Michigan, that motor is constantly going. There's no breaks. It's not like you're inland fishing where you will motor over to a spot and then stop and spot lock. You know, your motor isn't constantly going. From the minute we launch to the minute we come back to the dock, the motor is constantly going. You're trolling. So in these stronger currents, there was a lot of days of very strong currents. I realized that my 100 amp hour battery was just getting eaten up. I mean, the motor was really working hard to keep me going at the speeds I needed to go to get these fish. And what I found was that typically it would take me about 30 amps of juice to get me out to about 100 feet of water. That means it would take me equally the same 30 amps to juice me back into the harbor. So with a 100 amp hour battery, I knew that about 60% of that battery had to be dedicated to getting me out to the fishing grounds where I wanted to go. And in this case, about 100 feet was about the max range I was willing to go. And so that was kind of the math on that. That left me with only about 40 amp hours of battery to actually fish the fishing grounds. And what happened was there was quite a few days where either the fishing was really good and I had to cut it short because I was running out of juice. I had to account for the 30 amp hours I needed to return in. Or the other situation is it's a tougher bite day, and these are one of those days where you need to grind it out, but I couldn't because I didn't have enough juice. So with having this 160 amp hour battery, which is really going to come in its own when it comes time to fish offshore, summer months, summer period, when the warm water rolls in, the fish go out deeper, and you have to fish deeper. This 160 amp hour battery is really going to extend my fishing for the fact that I'm going to have that extra 60 amp hours of battery that will account for the travel back and forth. And I have near 100 amp hours of total fishing to sit on the fishing grounds and go to town on this fish. Whether it's a hot bite day or maybe it's just a little bit tougher bite, trying to dial things in. It gives me more time on the water so that I can, maximize my fishing opportunities. So I'm really excited about having this 160 amp hour battery and what it's going to allow me to do in those instances. Now, if you are looking for a battery, generally speaking, 100 amp hours is more than enough for most people. It's certainly more than enough for spring and fall fishing on Lake Michigan if you have a trolling motor, because you're really just putzing around outside the harbors, near shore, not a big deal. You're going to be good to go. But when you have to go out deeper, I think this is where a higher capacity battery is going to suit you well. And so this might be something you need to consider when you kind of get into that period, whether you add another battery and switch them out, or you just get an all new one altogether for like a end all be all for all your fishing needs. But you definitely have options. Now, what I will say is, and generally speaking, after doing a lot of tracks on my fish finder, I've come to find that I can get on a 100 amp hour charge, I can get roughly about 12 to 14 miles of total travel on a charge before I really get to that point where it's starting to run low. And I believe under 10 amp hours or 8 amp hours, it'll actually my motor will actually stop altogether. So I'll run it all the way down to that. And it's happened to me a few times last season where I just got into the harbor mouth when the motor ended, because I really was testing the limits on their range and the battery. So I've kind of collectively gathered that information. I hope to do something more on paper this year. Last year was just a lot of observation stuff. This year I hope to do more tracking of it to then share the data. But 12 to 14 miles per trip on that 100 amp hour battery was about that spot where you could go out comfortably and cover that much ground. I believe with this 160 amp hour battery, it's going to be a significant boost. I'm pretty sure we're going to get up 20 plus. And again, this season, we're going to do a lot of testing. I'm going to report back in future videos, sharing with you. We'll do a test on maximizing, see how many miles we can cover on one single charge. We'll see how long it takes for it to drain. And of course, there's a lot of variables with this, right? Weather conditions, the currents, the winds, it's all going to factor into how much the motor has to work, which in turn then draws more juice out of there, or faster, draws the juice out faster from the battery. So that's what we have with these two batteries. Now, there's one other part of this that Amped Outdoors sent me that I'm really, really excited about. Now, let me show you this. I'm gonna move this over here. I've been using a battery shunt on my first battery, and you'll see it right here. This one is just kind of hardwired in, and I got and glued it over to the front of the case so I could look down, and I've orientated the lettering to face up so that I can look between my legs and I can see how many volts, how much, what percentage of the battery's left, and it's worked just fine. Amped Outdoors is stepping up their game and is now released for 2023 a new product. This is the Amped Outdoors battery monitor. So it's a Bluetooth enabled battery shunt where you attach it to the battery itself. You'll get the app, and then on the app you get to see all the information that you need right there at your disposal. And what's cool about it, it kind of gives you more detailed information that I can't get just off the shunt. With the shunt, I can only really see the voltage and the percentage of the battery that's remaining. Here on the battery monitor, we're gonna know the voltage, the capacity remaining of your battery, how much current, so you can really see when you're cranking up your motor, how much current is drawing, the power, and most importantly, for me anyway, time remaining. It's an estimated time remaining at the current draw that you're at, you know, your speed and all that stuff, all the conditions that you're at. It'll give you an approximate idea of how much battery is remaining if you kept that current settings as you're trolling around. That's going to be invaluable. You can really be efficient with this tool. With this information, it's going to allow you to be way more efficient, know what's going on, so that you can make better calls and judgment calls out in the water in terms of should I maybe slow down a little bit to conserve battery right now? Should we really punch it? Should I maybe end sooner or end later based upon how much battery is left? So we also have the battery monitor. This is available now. And there's an accompanying app that you have to download from the App Store, put it on your phone, that's going to sync to it all, and then boom, you've got that information right there at your disposal. And yes, we will do an install video on the battery monitor here to show you how it sets up and how you use it on your phone, and do some testing with that as well in future videos. So those are, for me, some of the most important things you need to consider when you're looking for a battery for your kayak, whether it's for your trolling motor, your electronics, your lights, so on and so forth. And Amped Outdoors makes a great product. Now, full disclaimer, they did send me this for 2023 to support the channel, as I may have mentioned earlier in it. And with that being said, it does not sway my opinion and reviews on the products itself. I will always share my honest opinion with you, and to be quite honest, they make a fantastic product. I haven't had any issues. The few times I've had to reach out to Amped Outdoors via Facebook or Instagram in the past about the current batteries or questions, they've been very responsive, great customer support from my experience so far. And it helps that they're local. They're right up the street in Wisconsin. I'm in Illinois, so you know, we're like practically neighbors. So I always like to support companies that are local as much as possible, and they're also local to the area. So consider checking out Amped Outdoors. I'll link to these products I'm using down below if you're interested and want to find out more information, especially for the battery monitor, for you guys to check out. So we'll wrap it up here. Any questions on batteries, feel free to drop it down below so I can answer them. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.